Good evening, everyone, first of all. This is, I think, the largest turnout I've seen at the Quorum. So thanks all for being here. Obviously, we have somebody who...
Please check if the drinks are on the house or something.
That's so true. Unfortunately, I don't think Vivek will ever do that. No, but seriously, it's my honor to be doing this fireside chat with someone who I deeply admire. And I genuinely mean that, right? I've been working with Jayesh since the beginning of the formation of Telangana and have got to see him up close and personal. I don't think Jayesh will approve of this, but I'm going to tell you a few things about him that aren't known that well. I mean, obviously as Special Chief Secretary to the government, that itself is a formidable role. But I don't think most people know his background and how much he's studied, how much he's done. I had to do the research as well, and I was amazed.
That won't be of interest.
Come on, I'm sure they're going to be interested. Quickly, I'll go through it quickly. First of all, he was an All India topper of his batch, right? 1992. He has multiple degrees. He's got a degree in, I didn't know he's done this much. A degree in business management from IIM Calcutta. And another thing that I learned was that your father was part of the first batch at IIM Calcutta.
Yes.
That's really impressive.
I was in the 26th batch. So 26 years later, I joined.
Wow. That is incredible. You also have a master's degree in psychology from Delhi University, a master's in public management from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy in Singapore. You've done courses in the University of Birmingham on environmental policy analysis.
I think we should.
There's just a lot, by the way. JICA, London School of Economics, Kennedy School of Government, Swedish Institute. He's got a bunch of awards. My point is this, right? For who he is, both his role, even his demeanor, by the way, he can be very, very stern on the exterior sometimes. People can get intimidated looking at him. And yet, one of the most common things I hear when people have gone to meet him for the first time is how approachable he is and how he gets things done. And I just want to encourage anybody that has worked with the government to reach out if they need to. My question to you, Jayesh, actually, first of all, right? Given the amount that you do, what's your view on life and what gives you the energy to do what you do? Because you're always energetic, beginning of the day, end of the day, all the time.
So thank you. First of all, greetings to everyone. Thank you for coming over. We also have decided that while Srinivas will ask a few questions, but we'll kind of turn it over as much time as you want to ask anything or seek any clarification. So happy to give time to you as well. But see, the point is, for me, it is very, very important to maintain that balance between work and non-work. And one of the ways in which I do is to create a very strong team around me. In fact, there's so many things which are said about us that we did this, we did that, we got so much of investments, the face of Hyderabad has changed. Obviously, many people are behind it, and the real credit goes to a strong team which has come around me. The responsibility that I have taken is to really empower them, nurture them, motivate them. So that way, I mean, the reality is that whatever my position, very little work comes to me. And whatever comes to me, the 5-6 hours that I have for work every day, that is good enough to do that. And the rest of the time I spend in non-work activities. So see, the principle is that at the end of the day, there must be something to look up to. Yeah. That I've done my duty for the day, but there is something beyond that also. So I support lots of charities. I'm involved in arts, culture. I am the chairman of the Hyderabad Literary Festival. There's a premier theatre festival which happens here every November. I'm on the organizing committee. I do so many other things as well.
Yeah. In fact, that's another thing that's part of the reason why people wonder how you have time is you're incredibly busy at work, and you're also incredibly busy with the social work that you do as well, and culture. Yes. And of course, sports. You're a big cricket
and other sports.
And other sports also. The other thing is you have been here from the very beginning of the Telangana government. And, one of the plans that we had was how do we put Hyderabad on the map? How do we turn it into a global city? Some of those policies have continued through here. I guess one of the questions I have is how have policies changed from previously to now? Let me start with that.
10 years that I was a part of the earlier government. At that time also some very exciting things happened. All of you are witness to some of the great things which happened in the state. in the city. For instance, you were associated with T Hub. In 2014, Hyderabad was not counted at all as a serious place where innovation is happening, where startups need to go. It was on the fringes as compared to various other cities. But now we are giving a strong run for the money to, let us say, a city like Bangalore or Chennai or Gurgaon. We have created institutions. There have been this important decision that will bring talent from the outside to work with the government. So many talented people like yourself contributed to the work which we did. So that phase is there. Now, in the current responsibility, 8 months approximately have gone by. See, many of you would know that when the elections were fought, the current government, which is the Congress government, they fought that election on a very strong plank of welfareism, which is very true of Congress governments across the country, also at the national level. Their manifesto, their agenda is heavily loaded towards welfareism. And in this state also, you would have seen one of the first things which the government did was to roll out 6 guarantees, like you will do this, the free bus scheme for women, free gas cylinders, and this and that, which is fine. But one great thing which is now happening is that the leadership, the chief minister, his cabinet colleagues, they have also now realized the welfare agenda is by and large on an autopilot. It will happen, and you can only derive mileage up to this point through welfareism. Something more needs to be done. So the new agenda that they have prepared, the developmental agenda, that is also very, very impressive, very fascinating. Some of you might have heard about it, some of the bits and pieces here and there. For example, the chief minister is very keen to set up a completely greenfield sustainable township, what he calls as the net zero city or the future city or the fourth city. And I'm involved in developing that agenda. So that's again something which is very, very ambitious. We have decided that there will be 8 zones in that net zero city. We have about 15,000 acres of land with us, and it will include things like an education hub, a medical tourism hub, a sports hub, AI city. Then there'll be a few manufacturing clusters related to pharma, electronics, electric vehicle. Abutting to this 15,000 acres is 5,000 acres of forest land. So Chief Minister's priority is to first develop that into very high quality lung space. You have thick plantation, you develop walking tracks, you create water bodies in it. So these kind of ideas which the government is taking forward, these are very compelling. Similarly, some of you may be aware, in fact, it's a nice coincidence that we are chatting now. Today afternoon itself, we had a very detailed and a very well-attended meeting of some of the who's who of the business world. The Chief Minister has asked us to start a skills university, and I'm responsible for it. It is called the Young India Skills University, which again is something which will be of tremendous use to not just the state or the city, but to the country as well. Similarly, some projects in which I'm not directly involved, but they are also very compelling. I have seen their presentations, etc. As all of us know, we have this river called the Musi River. So right now it is so insignificant that we don't even notice that we are crossing a river or there's a river close by, etc. It has no semblance of a river for that matter. But the plans that he has drawn to rejuvenate it, and I'm sure all of you are well traveled, you would have seen how rivers have created enormous sources of recreation, commercial development, lots of livelihoods get sustained there, tourism, culture. So that is the idea. And in fact, it is not a new idea. I remember almost 20 years ago, I used to hold an assignment in Hyderabad. I was the vice chairman of the Hyderabad Urban Development Authority. What is called HMDA now was called in those days as HUDA, HUDA. And for about 2.5 years, I was the vice chairman. And in those days also, there was a plan to revive the Musi River. But nothing went through because we could not figure out, or we could not crack the very first fundamental issue, which is how to get water in this river. You can develop the river, do so many other things, only if there is water in that river. So all kinds of ideas were created that we'll have a rubber dam, or we'll do this and we'll do that. But obviously everything was impractical and nothing worked out. And when I saw the presentation now, as I said, I'm not directly involved in that project, but occasionally I just hang around when some discussions are happening, some presentations are being shown. So I just happen to look at the presentation. It is so simplistic. It costs a little, but the solution given to bring water to Musi is to connect Godavari with it. So if you connect Godavari to Musi, Musi will have water, and then obviously you can ensure that pollutants are kept away from the river, encroachments are removed. The lands which the government owns is developed in a very creative way, very imaginative way. There are lots of opportunities for recreation, culture, the way riverfronts are across the world. So some of the things which are happening now are happening at a very fast pace. In fact, again, I don't think it has come out in the public, but Chief Minister has identified 15 priority projects, and they have all been bunched under an umbrella which is called SPEED, SPEED. So SPEED stands for some acronym which I'm not able to recall fully. But the reason why it is called SPEED is that you want to fast track all those development, etc. So I'm sure that this government also will leave a very strong mark, and some of the things which were not tried out in the previous government will be done. They will have done sooner than what people anticipate. But the other mature thing about the current government is that they have also announced it, and I see it in action, that all the good things which had happened in the past, they will all be continued as well. So it is not that you're demolishing something to create something. Unfortunately, these kind of things have happened in some other states in the recent past, which has left a very kind of a sour taste in the mouth of investors or well-wishers of that state. But here there is no such agenda, that unless I demolish something, I won't be able to build anything else. That's not the thinking at all.
In fact, one of my observations has always been that you're balancing projects that you have short-term outcomes, immediate, versus things that will mature over a long period of time.
Yes.
And you've been in a unique position because, this is your third term in a sense, right? In the same role. That's very unusual, isn't it? Do you know of any other bureaucrat that has done that?
See, I'm not aware, but this is just a matter of coincidence. It's not that I possess some kind of divine powers, and if I leave, everything will collapse. There's no such thing. It just happened randomly. But then there is a flip side to it. I have completed more than 10 years in the same role. But the flip side is that if something has not worked well, you can't blame anyone or anything else. Typically in bureaucracy, this is the common thing, that I got too less a tenure, or my predecessor had messed it up, I did not have enough time to clean it, or my team was very weak, or I did not get political support. There are some stock answers to explain when you're leaving why some things didn't happen. So I can't use any of those answers.
That's the negative. But the positive is that you've also been there and you've been able to ensure continuity of certain policies, right?
Of course.
Innovation, for example, again, having been there with T-Hub from the beginning, knowing the pivotal role you played, you ensure continuity. One of the questions again, so World Economic Forum, it's a thing that we've been going to for a while, Davos and all of that. Yeah. You just managed to get a center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution into Hyderabad, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that as well, what it took to bring that center here.
See, so again, the key point that you're trying to drive at is that whether continuity, long-term assignments help or not. So see, it is like this. When Telangana became a new state, the leadership at that time, they were clear about three things. And I can use T-Hub as an example to illustrate that. One was that many of you would know that the state was created after a protracted struggle. And if you look at the track record of other new states which have been created in the past, I don't want to name anyone, but the reality is that 20 plus years have gone by, and those states, out of politeness, we call them as emerging states or developing states, when we know for sure that nothing will emerge there, nothing will develop there. So there was a very strong risk that Telangana also could have gone the same way, and people would have repented that they took a wrong decision unnecessarily. A well-governed and a economically prosperous state of Andhra Pradesh was divided, and things could have gone very, very, very wrong. So the leadership at that point had this maturity that this can happen, and therefore I must ensure that it doesn't happen. I should prove them wrong. That was the drive. That so many things have happened in the first 10 years. The drive really was that I should prove them wrong. So I'll give you a small episode. When Telangana was being created, one of the people who were opposed to that creation, one of the arguments that they would use was that if this state gets formed, it will not have any power source. All the electricity, the energy generation happens typically in the coastal belt and all that. So Telangana will literally become a dark state. And if you use this expression in Telugu, so చాలా మందికి తెలుగు అర్థం అవుతుంది అనుకుంటాను. అంటే తెలుగులో అంటారు చీకటి రాజ్యం. So చీకటి, I don't think there's any equivalent phrase in English. I mean, those who don't know Telugu, చీకటి is darkest shade of dark, and చీకటి రాజ్యం is also a metaphor that the rulers are blinded or so on and so forth. So that is what used to be said, that this will become a చీకటి రాజ్యం if Telangana becomes a new state. So when Telangana became a new state on June the 2nd in 2014, it was the fact that there's hardly any energy generation here, power generation here, which would suffice for the requirements of everyone, the industries, the domestic consumers, the farmers. But the leadership felt that if we don't do anything, the comment that this will become a Chikati Rajyam will actually come true. So right from day one, we started buying power. And I remember on some days, we would have bought even 2,000 megawatts, 4,000 megawatts. And we ensured that not even 1 minute of power cut was felt by the industries, by the domestic sector, by the IT companies, the commercial sector. And of course, we ramped up our own investments in the energy generation sector. New projects were commissioned and so on and so forth. But this was the drive that we'll prove them wrong. And one of the things which happened in that series was that the credibility of the government, being a new government, was not very strong. So one of the important things which we decided was that we will have a policy for everything, so that everyone has clarity on what the government is planning to do, what responsibility will it take upon itself. So I myself, in those 10 years, I would have drafted and kind of authored more than 20 policies. So for everything, we decided to bring out a policy. But policy is not everything. You can write a great policy. In fact, this is the criticism about our country, that great policies are written, but nothing happens thereafter. In fact, I attend lots of international conferences, seminars, etc. What people tell about India is, it's also a kind of a joke now, that if you don't write a policy which is at least 500 pages, you have not done justice to that subject. So the policy book should actually sprain your wrist. Otherwise, you have not done a good job. Of course, it is written in very nice English, but it is just that, pages and pages and pages of English. It will read very nicely because someone who is very conversant with English has written all that. It will also be printed on glossy paper. So if you feel it, it will feel very well. Actually, if you bring it close to your nose, it will also smell very well, because no one opens these kind of books. But nothing happens thereafter. So our policies, I told you that I wrote about 20 odd policies. One of the internal norm was that if it is crossing 20 pages, then we will scrap it straight away. So that is one. But more important thing is, beyond writing policy, the real issue is who will take responsibility of delivering that policy. So far, governments across the country have erred on this count, that they expect that the regular bureaucracy will deliver that policy. So if let us consider the startup policy. If you ask me who has to deliver, so you can tell that technically I am responsible. I am the principal secretary of the subject dealing after innovation, entrepreneurship. I have to deliver, but I have to deliver hundreds of other things, and I can't devote 24/7 of my time. I may be passionate about startups, I may be fond of entrepreneurs, but I can't spend all my time looking just at that. So the second big thing which was done by the previous government was that they created multiple institutions whose sole job was to implement that policy 24/7. So we have T-Hub, we have T-Works, we have Task. Each of them have a particular role. But the even wiser thing which was done in the previous government's time was to ensure that there are talented people to run these institutions. So let us say we have created T-Hub. Many of the people in this room will be astounded to know that in all these institutions that we have created, there is not even one person of the government who works there. We have taken the best possible talent from the open market, and they are the people who are the CEOs or they occupy all the staffing positions. So this is something which was created, but it was an experiment. I mean, hardly would you hear a government bringing 400, 500 odd people from the open market to work for you. In the federal government, in Government of India, this is called lateral entry. But there is a huge uproar about it. They want to take 10 professionals as joint secretaries. There'll be so much of uproar that they will be forced to cancel that and all that. And here, from 2014 onward, there are almost 500 odd people who have been taken from the open market, and nothing has been, I mean, the heavens have fallen. Actually, things have turned out for the better. But the thing is, because these are experiments, these are unique things, new things for the government, and therefore it it was felt that continuity, some person who is whose thinking is on the same lines, who doesn't kind of have any issues with the private sector, who feels that their contribution is also important, they are also a valued partner in the development process, who can articulate this vision of the government, who can nurture these institutions, who has good skills to integrate everything. Such a person is required. And fortunately, they realized that I have these skills and I was given a long rope, so to say. The current government feels that there is much more. So, one of the first things which I was told by the current chief minister within days of his taking over the government, when he was in the opposition, he had made all kinds of comments about all of us. But the first thing which he told was that don't go by what I used to say or I used to comment and all. I am only interested in one thing, which is about results for the state. And even if I have commented about anyone, but if you think that he can do good for the state, my doors are always open for him. And some of you may know this or would have read about it. Once he started seeing people, particularly industrialists, some of the first people I took to him in a way very deliberately were the people against he has given some of the harshest remarks, just to show to the world that he means nothing. All that is history. And if that group or that company wants to invest, wants to do something better for the state, the doors of the government are always open. So these are signs of maturity. I'm continuing only because of his belief that I can deliver more. And the second message which he told was that I know that good things happened in the first 10 years. Let all those good things continue, but we have to outperform them. And that was very motivating. If the chief minister tells that I have to outperform someone, I expect more work, and better results from you. That's very encouraging. That's very satisfying. At the end of the day, we relish the professional recognition that we get, the abilities that we have. You mentioned that I have studied at all kinds of places. All that is a kind of investment so that I develop better skills, I deliver better, I plan better, and all that. It's not for the sake of acquiring degrees and putting them on the walls like that.
I get that. By the way, is that policy still continuing where you have the lateral hires coming in and they're staying in their positions?
Yes. Still. It is still.
That I think is a little known reason for why Telangana has done as well as it has, is exactly that. And how many of those, so a lot of those things that we did then were experiments, whether it was T-Hub or as lateral hiring. Is this government also still experimenting in the same way to get results?
As I told you, some of the good initiatives are being continued. So there is no bar for lateral hiring. So as you would know, after the government changed, some of the innovation ecosystem leaders resigned. Maybe they were more comfortable with the earlier regime or for whatever reason. Some of them had other career opportunities. Some of them left. But they were not replaced by some government functionary. It is not that some joint director in my office was told that he should become the VHub CEO or you should become the T-Works CEO. We got equally talented people from the open market to replace them. So that policy obviously continues.
How much of a role do you play in strategic directions for the state? For example, we're doing Mobility Valley now, for example. Even Farmer City got broken up into multiple farmer villages, right? How much of a role do you play in decisions like that?
Actually, frankly speaking, that is the only kind of work I do know. Most of the operational work is handled by the team. So, for example, I told you, Skills University, I'll give you the real example of Skills University. The direction given by the Chief Minister is very kind of precise, but in some ways also very broad. He told that there are skilling initiatives in the country and also in the past in the state, but nothing has really moved the needle. Companies still complain that we don't get skilled people and therefore they kind of lament about this. So he told us that let us create an institution which should be totally driven by the industry. The government has no role in that. And then he told that ensure that it also services the kind of jobs which are getting created in Telangana, but we should also aim for jobs which are available in rest of the country or overseas. So these are some of the broad mandates. And with that mandate, we have now been able to, it's just a matter of months. As I told you, coincidentally, we had a meeting today afternoon and almost 70 representatives of industrial houses were present. Some of them were aware that this announcement that the state will have a skills university was made in July. And in 3 months, we have created the university. We have a full-fledged board. We have a vice chancellor. We have some temporary space. We have sanctioned a permanent building, drawings of that building have been approved, construction is starting soon, and on 21st October, we are ready to start 6 courses in the university. So all this kind of work, like which courses will start, who will be the private sector partners, who will be the board, how will we engage with them, and all these are the things which I handle.
Actually, I think I know for a fact there are a lot of questions from the floor. So maybe we should give some space for those people to ask questions. Does anybody have questions for Jayesh?
I think just more on the infrastructure side, right? Because I think there's been transformational change when Telangana came in from Hyderabad and what has happened. But lately we have seen some of that work actually kind of stalling, maybe because the government is just taking the time to kind of start up some of these projects. But I used to be very proud of saying, whenever I go to Bangalore, I used to be so proud saying that we get projects done like in 2 months. We see a problem, there's a solution I see, it's happening. Like I go to Bangalore, there's a Hope Farm Junction which is hopeless. It's been there for like 10 years, nothing. But I can say that in Hyderabad, things would happen. In 3 months, the flyover would come up, things would change. But I see some of that pace kind of slowing down. Maybe it's just my own way of thinking, or maybe the government is just getting up to speed to get on these things. I'd just like you to comment on this, because I'm just being real practical that just this road, which has been dug up for like past, I think 3 months, has not been put up. I know this would not have happened earlier. I'm just trying to understand, what's the perspective in terms of infrastructure development for the city and how things are looking now.
See, I don't really know about the specific road that you're talking about, but in general, the belief that I have, and I have attended many meetings related to urban sector, urban growth, etc. The Chief Minister and his cabinet ministers are very, very clear that the importance of Hyderabad as a city to be the economic magnet for the state cannot be let down. They want to actually do more and more and more. And this Musi project, which I spoke about, is actually one example of how this, a lifeless kind of a river will be brought to life, will add so much of economic value to the city. I really do not know about the pace of some of the works. I can give this feedback to GHMC, etc. But Chief Minister has also some very interesting perspectives about the state. So one of the things which he has told us to keep in mind when we develop our plans, etc. So I am also I look after the industrial sector as well. So we have to set up new industrial parks and all that. So one of the broader paradigms that he has defined for us is to look at the state in 3 parts. Everything within Outer Ring Road is core urban. Between Outer Ring Road and then there is another road which is being planned, which is called the Regional Ring Road. So the ORR will be complemented by one more circle. It's like Beijing, where you would have seen there are multiple ring roads. The Regional Ring Road, so the space between the geography between Outer Ring Road and Regional Ring Road will be peri-urban. It will have at least the pockets which are very close to Outer Ring Road will have urban-like features. The ones which are slightly far away will have peri-urban kind of features. And everything beyond Regional Ring Road will be rural Telangana. So his interest is to ensure that everything within Outer Ring Road is turned into a real global standard cosmopolitan city. So the other day he was reviewing tourism projects, and he was telling that some of the tourism places in Hyderabad, they have got totally, they're beyond their shelf life. We should reinvigorate them. We should bring new thinking to kind of rejuvenate those kind of tourist spots. And some of these things, the 4th city that I spoke about, that again tomorrow. So I just spoke about it in a very passing way, but I can tell a little bit more about it now. So this is again a very rare kind of a coincidence that a government has in its possession 15,000 acres of land and 5,000 acres of forest land in one parcel, which is completely greenfield. There is no terrain challenge. You can do whatever you want. And some of the things which have been designed, like for example, I'm involved in the education hub part of it. Our interest now is to bring some of the world-class universities. As you would know, international universities have started setting shop in India. The first 2 universities, coincidentally, both are Australian universities, Deakin and Wollongong. they went to Gujarat, to Gandhinagar. The third university, which is a UK British University, University of Southampton, they have gone to Gurgaon. But there are many others who are now okay to come to India and set up their campuses, not some exchange programs or anything, full-fledged campus. So we are in touch with a few American universities. I can name them also. If some of you have studied there or have connects there, please push our agenda. One is Northeastern rather, which is in Boston, and one is Purdue. And we are also in initial discussions with Georgia Tech, because lots of students from Andhra and Telangana study masters in Georgia Tech. We are also in touch with an Australian university, which is located in Melbourne, called Monash. Some of these universities, we may kind of turn them around. One university has actually come forward and signed an MOU also with us, but we have not made it public. It is not amongst the best known universities in the US. So rather have a Purdue or a Northeastern be the first one to be publicly announced. But this also is an old university. This is in Kentucky, started in way back in 1888. So the idea is to get at least 20 of them in this education city. And the USP will be that, first of all, the land that we will offer to them will be totally free of cost. We won't charge anything. Second is that we will expect this university to focus only on their core infrastructure. So classrooms, labs, some administrative offices. Let us say every university provides gymnasium to the students. So we won't allow 20 gymnasiums to come up. Someone else will build one big gymnasium and offer it to all the universities. Let us say universities want swimming pools to be given to their students. So we won't have 20 swimming pools in the education university. Every service which can be shared will be developed by someone else. So your capital expenditure will come down. You will only focus on your core activity. And then the third, of course, the USP is that this will be part of something which is very unique. See, the narrative which the Chief Minister has really taken to his heart is, all of you would know this, that the city of Hyderabad was built by the Qutub Shahis 430 years ago. 250 years later, the British built Sikandrabad as a cantonment town. Then about 30 years ago, Chandrababu Naidu Garu built Cyberabad, where we are. So he feels that all of these were important at one point in time. They were very attractive, but their uniqueness, etc., has come down. Now there are many Cyberabads. I mean, I feel proud about our Cyberabad, but it's not the only one of its kind in the country. So he now wants to bring urban growth to the next level. So that is why this net zero city or the fourth city or the future city. So there will be these kind of hubs, but the overall master plan of the city also will be very, very attractive. So when I say it is net zero city, there will be no polluting transportation inside this city. You can take your car till the edge, but thereafter you have to only move in a battery operated vehicle. In the industries which will be set up in the net zero city, there has to be some economic driver. So 3-4 industries will be set up. They will all be non-polluting industries, and none of them will use coal for their energy requirements. It will all be gas, piped gas, and so on and so forth. The 4,000 acres, 5,000 acres of forest which are there, that also Chief Minister wants it to be developed much before anything else, so that already there is a sense of green space and recreation and openness, etc. And while we have 15,000 acres now, if we are able to acquire more lands, we can expand this as much as we can. And it will be connected from the airport. It is just 25 kilometers from the airport, and the express highway which has been planned to connect it from the airport will take you there in just about 15 minutes. So it is literally an extension of Hyderabad. City will be connected through a metro to that place. One of the zones, I told you about education, about medical tourism, about sports, AI, manufacturing. One of the zones will be like in any other city, you need to provide housing, you need to provide recreation, entertainment, shopping, convention, and all that. So that also will be done in a very high class way. And already some of the best known property developers across the world have shown interest in participating in these kind of projects. So this itself will become a new face of Hyderabad, in my opinion.
So it's competing with Amaravati.
Yeah. I mean,
we keep talking about this net zero and all that, but we all know that with this GDP growth will not achieve net zero. What we have to now look at is resilience, climate resilience. And because of the increasing temperatures, there will be change in crop pattern. Health will, some of the pathogens will mutate much faster, so on and so forth. Every department is going to get affected because of the temperatures going up. So, what is it that government of Telangana is looking at as far as
No, so we have not given up on net zero. So I'll take 3-4 minutes to explain what I mean. See, all of you would know that our Prime Minister has committed that India will become net zero by 2070. And obviously, as a Prime Minister, he has a national understanding. He would know which are the states which will take more time and the level of development and so on and so forth. So I'm sure lots of calculation would have gone behind his making this commitment that India becomes net zero by 2070. But in Telangana, we are very, very confident that it can be accelerated. It can be accelerated much faster. We don't have, as of now, very deep calculations, but some back of the envelope kind of calculations show that Telangana can declare itself as net zero by 2047. And we all know the significance of 2047. It will be a great thing when India becomes 100. To say that as a state we have become net zero, it will be a great thing to accomplish. But obviously, if you have to do something by 2047, it is not that you sleep till 2046 and suddenly you wake up, and it's not going to happen through magic. You have to take very concrete steps. So we are in the process of preparing the roadmap. If you have to do something by 2047, what needs to be done now, what needs to be done in the medium term, what needs to be done in the long term. So recently, as you would have heard, Chief Minister had visited the US. We met people from UNDP, from the World Bank. These thoughts were shared with them, and they have shown interest to support us in preparing our strategy, the roadmap. First of all, we need to take stock on where we are vis-a-vis net zero. If we have to reach there, what is the current stock of CO2 that we are emitting? So multiple interventions will have to be planned. Some of these will be easy to accomplish. There won't be too much of social costs or economic costs. Some of them will be so complicated, or the costs will be so high that maybe the government may decide not to go that path at all. And then you overcompensate by doing something else. So right now, these are very early days, but there is a sense that this is achievable. And if the government says that I'm setting a target for 2047, it will be a very great and a very ambitious and a very audacious promise to make. So what you now, to come to your point, so as I said, if we are agreeing to a roadmap and certain sets of implementation activities, not every sector will be affected. We won't be able to bring net zero in everything. Some of them are too complicated. We'll leave them aside. And there possibly the next best model is what you spoke about, which is to develop resilience. So if, for example, if we feel that agriculture is something we just can't do anything, agriculture habits are so deep rooted that you just can't change, then we may not go that path. We may do something else. Maybe, as you know, there are so many cement factories in our state. We may convert them into green factories. We may bring this compulsory electric mobility much earlier than what Mr. Gadkari is planning, and things like that. So in some ways, we'll be ahead of the curve. In some ways, we'll be kind of giving up and telling that here we won't be able to do anything, but let us bring a resilience strategy. But this, in a very definitive way, I'll be able to tell only maybe after 1 year or 9 months or so.
Sir, hi, good evening. This is Sanjay here. I come from Hyderabad and I run a company which is into sustainable business, renewable energy. And the same question which I wanted to ask, the sir asked already. But now that you spoke on the education, so I just have 1 or 2 questions on the education, sir. It's great to hear that the government is coming out multiple universities, and that's beautiful to see that these universities are coming. Point is on the existing education system, which whereas the big schools are charging very heavily, and where all these schools or colleges which comes into the form of trust, and wanted to understand, does government is planning to have any kind of a monitoring system on all these schools, on these colleges, which they are not supposed to, or they are supposed to declare or give their statement of accounts in every quarterly to the education department, which is not happening in that way, which I saw it previously. The only thing, the reason is asking, because until unless we don't have that kind of a monitoring agencies on these educational bodies, it will be very difficult for anybody to understand what's happening in the education system. And as per the policies also of the central government, it states very clearly that no school can have a profit, or no school can run as a business. So, but that has become like a business today. And on that front, if government has any kind of a plans or a thoughts, or maybe this point of mine can go to the government or come up with something.
My experience shows that in a gathering of this type, it is very risky to ask such questions because there will be many people who are actually school owners. I mean, school management or school owners. Yeah, so it's a very dangerous thing to ask such questions. And you can ask me privately. So Harish Garu, who is your neighbor who asked this question, is associated with multiple schools. So no. And then there is another thing. Since you spoke about school, but I'll still answer. But I'll still tell something else. Since you spoke about school, students are very familiar with this scenario, and all of you. I mean, we all were students. I'm sure we have all faced this scenario. This scenario is called getting out of syllabus questions. Question that you asked is really out of syllabus for me. I mean, I in the government, see, as I'm sure you know this, the government is very compartmentalized. So while I'm involved in setting up the universities, just because the chief minister asked me to do so, but I don't really know the nitty-gritties of the school system. My colleague in the education department will know this, but I do know, because as I say, I sit in some meetings and all, and I just pick some tidbits, that there is some committee which was established, a fees regulation committee, and the committee has given some recommendations, but beyond that, I really do not know how strongly it has been implemented or not. No. So I'll try to find out, even though I don't know. But it is not that I can't find out the answer and pass it on to you. I'll do that. But one sense which I'm getting about the current government is, see, and I personally believe in that, and I'm sure many of you also will believe in this philosophy. See, there is some legacy of decades. See, our schools are not born yesterday or day before. Schools are there for 50 years, 60 years, 70, 80 years. And something is very broken in that system. So one attitude could be that let me try to fix it. Let me not give up. Let me persevere and let me do things and reform and all that. The other is, let us not waste my time. This will never happen. Leave them as they are and try to create something which is better, something new. When I mentioned that we are creating universities, someone may say, what about the existing universities? There are already more than a dozen universities in Telangana, but we know what are the limitations of all these universities. In fact, one of the most visible university, of course, Osmania is the most well-known university, but in professional stream, the most visible university is called the JNTU, Jawaharlal Nehru Technology University. And some of you will be surprised to hear this. I was the officiating vice chancellor of this university for 2 years, 8 months. So for almost 3 years, I was the vice chancellor. And I also gave up. I mean, I realized that there are only some things that you can do in that university, and beyond that, I'm only going to waste my time. So I did introduce some reforms, but then I also encouraged various other. So I'm also on the board of IIIT. I'm connected with IIT. I'm connected with BITS. So I thought, let me devote my time and energy with these institutions, which are bringing some world-class kind of solutions and technologies, and the academic rigor is much, much higher. So, I mean, I'm not saying that this is the attitude which everyone will hold. Many of you will differ from me. They would prefer that we continue to invest in something which has already existing. Why let that effort go waste? But that is how things are.
I have a question. Good evening. My name is Tarun Oblam. I had a bunch of questions, to be very honest, to ask you, but I'll start with a small statement. See, policies are great, sir, but they serve the few. As a general citizen of this state, this city, I see that the population is struggling. There's a lack of common sense. The city is growing at a haphazard manner. There is no civil sense. There's no police on the road. I see that because I've grown up in Hyderabad and I see the change. There is change in terms of like the high rises and the buildings, but in terms of the general education of the population, I see that missing. As someone who tried to be an entrepreneur and start something new in a different business in Hyderabad, I'm a leather craftsman, I'm a shoemaker. It's very difficult to even find skilled labor in a city like this. I don't feel like we're creating an ecosystem. We're only serving very few sectors, like the healthcare and the real estate sector. That's what I see, at least, as a citizen of this state. See, other thing is every government wants to build a new city, but that's to do with the real estate bubble, right? What happens to the older part of the city? What happens to the SMEs and MSMEs? Because see, I also come from I'm a third generation factory business owner. I see my grandfather when he started the business back in the 60s. There were great initiatives by the government, for people to come, technocrats to come and start businesses. These days, what I see is everything is very focused on very few segments, especially in Hyderabad, if you look at it right. It's very difficult for a normal person to come start something new. Unless you are working either in the tech industry, or if you've got land, then you're definitely going to do well because you have money, liquidity. It's very difficult even with the interest rates right now at 15%, 16%. How do you upskill the general population? Universities are great, but universities only serve the rich. I went to a good university, I went to London, but I understand because I talk to the cab drivers on a daily basis, and when you ask them, what do you see for your future? There is no response to this. And I feel like the general population has been dumbed down, and I feel like the government needs to do something about it, but what is it that we're trying to do?
First of all, I would thank you. You articulated the thoughts and feelings of thousands and thousands of people. So I won't say that you are expressing something which is very, very out of the way. 5-6 points that you have covered. Some of them are very true. So when you spoke about citizens' education, citizens' awareness, we have failed. So it has never been a very focused priority of the government. But I feel that the governments can do it. So I also take a part of that blame. But certain other things which we are now trying to do in our schools and all will interest you. Will kind of excite you. See, typically people speak about Indian education system, which only promotes rote learning. The teacher comes in a very disinterested way. He writes something on the blackboard. No one pays any attention. The whole emphasis is just to pass some exam and all that. So that is one of the salient differences why India's performance in so many well-established indicators as compared to, let us say, Korea or a Japan or even a China is way, way lower. Everything, the fault lies with the education system, but it's very easy to say so. So in Telangana, what we have been doing, it has started in a small way, but I'm sure that fruits of what we are doing will be visible in days to come. We have started introducing courses on design thinking in all the government schools to begin with. We have started running school innovation challenges in which teachers and the students together look at some problem which is happening around, and then they find some creative solution. It is presented before an audience. We select some good ones. They are showcased even higher. Some are even brought to Hyderabad. Prizes are given. So these small things, I'm very sure will go a long way in making children understand the larger civic context in a more responsible way. So innovation thinking is not about don't litter the road or don't break the lane discipline, but these thoughts also will come. When I'm seeing the problems around me, I will start noticing that littering is the reason why this problem persists, or lane breaking is the reason why this problem persists, and so on and so forth. So in an indirect way, we are going to make that impact. But this is a slow process, but I'm very sure that very few governments, at least in India, are doing these kind of things. And maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, if we see massive changes in the way civic engagement is happening in this state and in the city, people may recall that this is how it all began 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 years ago or so. So that is a point I completely agree. We have tried to make a beginning in this way, but I do agree that this should have happened maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago or so on. The other points that you spoke, you have said so many things. I'll pick this bit about MSME, then I'll pick this bit about skilling. And finally, you spoke about how lots of citizens feel that they're totally remotely connected with what is happening around you. So I'll take all these four. I don't think we'll have time beyond this, isn't it? No. This is not one question. These are 4 questions. No. So I'll give quick answers then. Actually, so very quick answer. So MSMEs, the things are not that bleak. It is only that the definitions that we use create these compartments. But if you go to rural Telangana or rural Andhra Pradesh also for that matter, you will find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of what we call micro entrepreneurs. Many of them are women. They have been organized into self-help groups. Their capacities have been built. They have access to easy bank finance, rates of interest are not that high. There is a government promoted bank which is called Srinidhi, which gives even today a loan to a woman self-help group member at 9% rate of interest, and so on. And government support them for their marketing, branding, etc. So lots of micro entrepreneurship is happening in the city. Formal MSMEs who are operating from some industrial parks and all are also kind of okay, because as I told you, I'm also looking after the industry sector. I mean, it's a nice coincidence that you are raising this MSME question, because just yesterday, I don't know whether you kept track of it or not, but the new MSME policy was launched. And again, I developed that policy, I wrote it, and I know the kind of thinking which has gone into it. We have tried to see why are the MSMEs in Telangana not considered the best performing MSMEs in the country? What are the gaps and what interventions are needed to bridge those gaps? So we have created that. But the MSME scenario is not that bleak. Now, the sectors that you mentioned, so entrepreneurship is growing. I won't really diss it the way you feel. And particularly, I feel very happy that a lot of it is happening in the rural areas, which don't come into our attention at all. But a lot of micro entrepreneurship is happening. If you ever get a chance to visit rural pockets of the state, you will see some amazing case studies. Lots of food processing industries have been set up and these are not, at one point in time, we used to think that women in rural areas make this pachadi or papad in their homes. I mean, I don't even count them as micro-entrepreneurship. Things have changed way beyond that. The other point about skill is exactly what prompted us to create this skills university. Again, the initiative which I'm driving. And this skills university, the difference here is that every course, we have decided to start courses in 20 verticals. No course will be started unless there is an industry partner to anchor it. And the industry partner will tell us what the syllabus is. The industry partner will send its managers and officers to teach. The industry partner will decide which students will be admitted in which course. The industry partner will set up the lab. They will give internships. They will give placement. So skilling scenario will change very rapidly. And again, as I mentioned to you, this is again a flagship program. It's part of the SPEED umbrella of programs. And already, as I told you, within 3 months, we are ready to launch the first course itself. And a person of the stature of Mr. Anand Mahindra has been asked to helm this. He was here today afternoon and he has appreciated the way we are taking this forward. So he is very positive. The other thing that the focus is on very limited sectors, on real estate, on healthcare. So again, there is a legacy. Because IDPL started way back in early 60s, the pharma industry grew, the defense industry grew because some of these defense labs were established here, the defense PSUs were established here. So we can't ignore that legacy. I mean, that legacy is something which has sustained the economy of this state, this city, and as a government, we need to do more for them. And therefore, these pharma villages that you spoke about, which does not mean that other sectors are neglected or are not encouraged. You will be amazed to know that some of the most successful space companies have origins in Hyderabad and in so many other sectors also. I mean, if you ask me, there are at least 15 sectors where we encourage, the government has policies, government has programs. As I told you, we have recruited almost 500 people to work with the government in a professional setting. I have today a team which supports automotives. I have a team which supports defense and aerospace. I have a team which supports textiles, a team which supports food processing. And the support is not only for large companies or giant companies. They're for even a small entrepreneur also. Some sectors are more visible. Healthcare, pharma are more visible. Real estate is visible in all big cities in the country. So it's not very unique about Hyderabad. It's an urban phenomena. Real estate, fortunately, in Hyderabad is still controlled. There is always a oversupply, and therefore we are able to keep the prices low, which also helps us in attracting more and more companies to the city, and so on and so forth. So completely agree with some of the points which you told, but on some of the points, I think the larger perspective which is happening in the state needs to be brought to your knowledge.
Good evening, sir. I'm Hartej. I'm from ITE&C. It's a social impact program in the University of Chicago. We work with different governments and state governments and central governments on tech policy, digital health, governance. These are some of the areas. My question is more about picking your brains about what has worked and what has not worked governance-wise. Particularly, I want to understand that when governments make bets that, okay, for the next 5 or 10 years, this is what we want to do. And these are the verticals under which we want to do. Say healthcare, within healthcare, okay, analytics is going to be our strength. But what if that doesn't work out? How do you ensure that governments can be agile enough to pivot? And if something doesn't work out, how can they come about it?
My personal experience shows that government should play some roles completely by itself, but most of the other responsibilities should be shared with partners or stakeholders. If you decide to do everything, then some of the problems that you spoke about, that results will not come, things will not happen, you will have egg on your face, all that scenario will happen. So, for example, 10 years ago, I'll use this example, and this example possibly will illustrate what I'm trying to tell. 10 years ago, when Telangana became a new state, I'll share a little bit of backstory because Srinivas was also present. The leadership at that time conducted a workshop. It was a visioning exercise. It was conducted at the Indian School of Business. It was called Envisioning Telangana. So it's a new state. What is the vision? We got lots of ISB professors, other domain experts, about 50, 60 people were there like this. And one suggestion so the question which was posed to them was that Telangana came into being after years and years and decades of neglect. So what do we do now to make up for that lost time? I mean, decades have passed by. All the opportunities went to the coastal region and other places where more prosperity is, more entrepreneurial people are. So what do you do to make up for the lost time? So all kinds of answers came. One answer which was commonly shared was that state should encourage technology, because the world over, what is noticed is that technology is a big game changer. It provides solution. It can help you improve your agriculture productivity. It can help you deliver better education and so on and so forth. One more thought which emerged in that gathering was that if you look at who is providing that technology, I mean, state should encourage technology, but who is giving you that technology? Who is providing that technology? So a common answer came was that while there are tech companies and R&D institutions and corporates and all, but they continue to do what they're expected to do. But the real breakthrough technologies, some of the most progressive technologies are coming from young entrepreneurs, whom we call startups. And therefore, the message was that you should, as a state, as a government, engage with startups. So anyway, we completed that workshop and we went back. Then the minister who was there at that time, Mr. K.T. Ramarao, he asked me that, are there enough startups in Hyderabad? What is it? So we turned to Srinivas. He was working in an incubator at that time. There were only 3 incubators in the city at that time. And with his help, we organized a second meeting. So minister told us that let us talk to the startups to understand what can we do for them. If experts are telling that we should work with the startups, how can we work with them? So we requested him, and in his institution, which was the Triple IT, one more gathering took place. In those days, Hyderabad had just some 60-70 startups. So 20-30 people like you came there. So the minister asked this question that what do you want us to do? What do you want the government to do for the startups? And you will not believe it. The answer which came was that if you stay away from us, that is the best thing that you can do to us. Of course, it's not very difficult to understand where these kind of answers come. This is the narrative which has been popularized by the IT giants like Mr. Narayan Murthy and Mr. Azim Premji. They keep on telling that government stayed away, therefore we are so big. They never acknowledge that the government waived all our taxes for 20 years. The government created STPI. The government introduced computer science education rather. But anyway, they are partly true also. See, typically the belief is that the government is associated with micromanagement, over-regulation, and therefore if it stays away, it is good. Then the minister also realized that the question was not framed correctly. He framed it in a different way. He asked them that what are the challenges that you face? What are your pain points? And is there anything which you feel that the government can do to reduce your pain points or eliminate your pain points? And once the question was framed in this way, many points came out. Almost 1 hour of lively interaction. This is not happening. That is not happening. One very important point which I can share with you is, so as you know, this is Hyderabad. All the action is happening here. So startups who were there, they told us that the rentals in this area are very, very high. I mean, as you know, if suppose I want to have my office in this building, in the Salarpuria Knowledge City, I'll be paying 100 rupees a square feet. And obviously as a startup, I can't pay 100 rupees. It is even more than 100. Maybe Piyush can tell what is the rental here. It is way ahead of more than that. The startups told that because we can't afford the rental, we are pushed into, let us say, Begumpet, or a Sikandrabad or of course Begumpet and all are also not kind of out of the town. I live in Begumpet for that matter. But they want to be here and they can't afford, so therefore they are somewhere else. So then the minister told us that why don't we build something and give it out at a very, very low rental and create good programs for startups and all. And that is how T-Hub idea came in our mind. There was no thinking about T-Hub. But when startups told that this is what we require, we felt that this is what we should do. But the larger point which I wanted to tell you, I mean, all this was backstory leading to the point which I was trying to tell you. So when the decision was taken that I'll build a large incubation space. Earlier, the T-Hub was in a smaller building. I don't know whether you know of it or not. It was in Triple IT campus. That itself was pretty large by national standards. It was about 70,000 square feet of space, the largest in the country. But then we decided that we'll build something much bigger so that more people can be accommodated. So the current T-Hub, which is there, 350,000 square feet. The decision which was taken by us was that we will run programs, we will support it, we will bring all the ecosystem players together. Many people advised that this is very, very risky. Government should actually stay away from it. They gave the example of Bangalore. There is a huge startup ecosystem there. It is way bigger than Hyderabad. And they told us that the government has played no role in it. And that is exactly what Hyderabad should also do. I mean, the Telangana government should also do. Play no role, just stay back. If you want to build some building and all, please go ahead and build, but thereafter do nothing. The decision which was taken was that no, we will drive it. Instead of just watching and hoping that things will happen through some miracle, we will drive it. And therefore, we will build not just T-Hub, we'll build 10 other institutions. We will create model programs. We'll bring academic institutions to partner with us. We'll create a government mentorship program. We'll give access to money also at early stage. We'll create a T fund. 10 years earlier, many people commented that this is again a very big risk. Governments have failed spectacularly elsewhere in the world in trying to replicate a Silicon Valley or a research triangle park, etc. But the conviction was there that this can work. And of course, some important elements that you choose the right leaders to take responsibility. You ensure that people from the government side understand this philosophy, understand this logic. The continuity bit, which was spoken earlier, that you continue. Put a very strong board. And I can tell this to you about T-Hub. T-Hub has a 10-member board. 3 members are from the 3 academic institutions. The Dean of ISB, the Director of Triple IT, the Vice Chancellor of NALSA. 3 members represent the tech community because this is a tech incubator. 3 members represent VCs. And I represent the government as the 10th member. It is very, very, very unusual for a government-run organization to have this kind of. If you see any government institution, this chief secretary, that minister, this principal secretary, this director, it will be packed with government nominees, and symbolically to show that we are we are inclusive and all that, 2-3 names will be thrown in from the private sector. So it's very unusual that there are 9 people from outside and 1 government. On the rare situations when government is cornered into this scenario, that it is 9 versus 1. One trick which the government typically plays is that the government's nominee is made the chairman of that. So you may be 9, but I am the chairman and therefore finally I have to sign and therefore it is my way or the highway. But in T-Hub, we have deliberately not done that. For the last 10 years, the T-Hub chair is a gentleman called BVR Mohan Reddy. He's the founding chairman of Scient. He's a past president of NASSCOM. He's a Padma Shri awardee. He's the chairman of the board of IIT Hyderabad and so on and so forth. So that is how things are. So governments take calculated risks even when there is a very strong evidence contrary to it. But then you have to figure out what extra is needed to make that work. These are not random risks or risks in which you are bound to fail. You can make it work. But I do not completely concur with your view that if there are certain areas where it is very risky, government should completely withdraw from it. My personal feeling is, having spent decades in the government, that we should be everywhere, but we should play a very strategic role in different sectors. In some sector, I will be the driver. In some sector, I'll be the aggregator. I'll bring people together. So the skills university. In fact, I told you, today we had a meeting in the afternoon. Chief Minister gave a very short speech, but the last line of his speech was very, very instructive. The last line of his speech was that with today's meeting, my job in the skill university is over. From now, it is Mr. Mahendra's job. And he really meant it. From now, he will never ever ask us also on what is happening in the skills university. Mr. Mahindra has the responsibility now. So we did all this integration. We created an act, we got it approved in the assembly, we appointed the board, appointed the vice chancellor, gave some money for the building, but now my job ends. So Skills University will be recognized as a government promoted university, but it will have no role of that. So I guess that is how things are.
Hi sir, Yash here. Sir, I definitely agree that what is happening currently in the state, Hydra especially, is for the greater good. But don't you feel that that is also spoiling the real estate sentiment as a market as such? People are very apprehensive of going ahead in that, as to invest in the market or.
No, but as I told you, some real big ticket projects, very visionary projects are coming up. The fourth city, which is coming up, as I told you, I've seen the master plan. I'm involved in preparing the master plan. The kind of construction that will happen there will, maybe it is, I won't say that it is as much as Amravati, but it will be really close to that. Amravati will be built at a bigger scale. And so many other initiatives which are happening. I don't think it will give any negative sense to the real estate. Real estate will remain bullish here because, see, eventually real estate is also a sector dependent upon buyers. So there is a very strong buying sentiment in Hyderabad. I don't see any erosion of that sentiment in the near future.
Hello, sir. This is Junaid. So I just want to follow your last answer, which you have said that. Creating T-Hub and all. I just wanted to give an example that what a good policy is when you decentralized IT hubs to district headquarters. So 2 years back, I met you in Kautilya School of Public Policy, asked the same question, sir, what is happening creating IT hubs in district headquarters? What does it mean? Decentralizing IT hubs. Is it really would it just an building just to create a political thing, or else it will really create some impact? 2 years down the line, what I have seen is that IT hub in Khammam, which government have developed, is just not only a single building. There are multiple buildings came up in Khammam district.
Yes.
And the other interesting fact is there is a town called Madhira in Khammam which have startups. And that particular small town is startups are getting projects from US, Europe. And people from Hyderabad, some interesting point is people from Hyderabad are going to Madhira and giving interviews for the jobs. And this, I guess this is one of the remarkable policy. What a good policy does, if you have a right objective and vision, I guess we should really thank you for that. Government's commitment, vision, and what we see, I guess what you have said is that a leader's vision actually, which is important, I guess. So I think that is actually which have drive to
I'm coincidentally going to Kautilya School again day after tomorrow. I don't know what they will ask me this time. If they are your classmates, just tell them to be nice to me. It's a very hostile atmosphere, the Kautilya School. I don't know why they call themselves Kautilya School. Kautilya is not a role model. Kautilya is supposed to be a very cunning kind of a person.
So my name is Pratik Modi and I run a paper manufacturing company in IDPL. My question to you is, so I work closely with real estate developers, I help them out, and the problem they have, which also I have, is the lack of skilled labor currently available to us, especially in Telangana. In fact, most of my workers are from outside of the state. So just wanted to ask you if you have any thoughts of that and how do you develop something like this?
No. So I explained to you, I explained a while ago, the whole logic behind Skills University, this is the origin, that you are not getting enough skilled people in Telangana while there are jobs. So the whole idea is now to understand from the industry what skills are missing, create a very high value skilling program, which is run by the industry. So if you are a member, let us say, of CREDAI, or if you are associated with the National Academy of Construction, we'll soon be reaching out to all these people, asking them to design skilling programs, etc. So today, for example, in the meeting, some representatives from the Adani group were there. So the person who was there is about to set up a cement plant in our state. And he told that for my plant itself, to construct that plant and run that plant, I'll require thousands of people. And I'm very sure that the kind of people I require, because these are not old-fashioned cement plants. These are all very state-of-the-art kind of plants. I just won't have people there. And when he understood the model of the Skills University, in that meeting, he committed that I will start a course in this university which will train people who can operate a modern manufacturing plant. So please look up to the Skills University and be a part of creating the programs, courses, and so on and so forth. No, so Skills University website is going to be live shortly. We'll keep a window in which comments can be loaded. I'll do that.
All right. Thank you so much for being so patient and listening to all of this. Obviously, Jayesh, always so much to talk about. Thanks for all being here for this long. Thank you, Jayesh, for participating in this. I think that's the end of the session.